Train the muscles, not the joints. Welcome back to Natural Gallant Bodybuilding. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about natural bodybuilding and why hasn't it taken off? Yeah, that's an interesting topic, isn't it? That's an interesting topic. I wonder, maybe you guys know. So as I talk about the subject, I'm going to be doing some chest, back, and some arms in the background here. So just, enjoy it. Enjoy it, man. It's just like, yeah, here I am getting a workout in while we're having a conversation. I know some people are asking me if it's a good idea to do the Q&A while I work out, but honestly, I was actually enjoying doing the Q&A when I was working out because it helps me just pump some of the blood through and not just sit still for about 2 hours or 3 hours talking to people. It was kind of fun to get some sets in between, so it felt like it was a little bit more constructive anyway. So anyway, today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about natural bodybuilding and bodybuilding in general, and about why natural bodybuilding might not have taken off and why it hasn't really taken off as a popular sport. Now, some of the experiences I've had in natural bodybuilding you might be interested in. If you're not, then I guess this probably isn't a good video for you to listen to because I'm going to talk about it. It's going to be like old Grandpa Jason just talking about some of his experiences competing in different federations and stuff. But here I go. Okay, I'm going to do my best attempt of why natural bodybuilding might not have taken off, at least in the last 30 years, and maybe why it's not taken off now, or maybe it is on an upward trend as we speak, who knows. So when I first started competing back in 1996, that was when I won my first show. I was really excited after winning that first show because it was like a validation where my life, I had been doing a lot of natural bodybuilding. I just loved this whole lifestyle. I didn't know where it all fit. I didn't know how I was going to make a career of it of any kind, but at the same time, I knew I enjoyed it and I knew I just had to follow it. So competing kind of validated that for me. When I competed, it meant, okay, yes, I accomplished something with this hobby that I had, and it was really exciting. So obviously the next trend is, how do I make a living with this hobby? How do I take this to the next step? And as much as, most people personal train or they open up a gym or they do something like that, I wanted to make a living from fitness modeling or being under contract or from competing, kind of like the normal professional bodybuilders do, but I wanted to do it in the natural bodybuilding arena. But as I competed with different federations, I started to become pretty disenchanted with what was going on. For instance, I competed at some bodybuilding shows, and depending on the federation I was speaking with, would depend on whether I was getting truth or lies from them when it came down to how well they were going to promote the show. I remember one promoter telling me that ESPN was going to be doing coverage of the show, and there's going to be all these people, that the show was going to be in Las Vegas, and it was going to be terribly exciting. There's going to be hundreds and hundreds of people there, if not thousands, and lots of media and photographers, all this kind of thing. A great place to get exposure. So if you're looking for sponsorships and things, this is definitely going to be your way in the door, right? Lucky for me, the weights are lighter here. So just so you know, based on the numbers that are here, I was usually using the 125s in my gym, not the 120s. So yeah, I feel like a real man now. I feel like a real man. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks. Sorry about that. I have a habit of interrupting myself. I'm on the screen and I'm kind of behind the microphone. And anyway, you get what I'm saying. So let's get back to the whole competing thing. So with this one promoter, I showed up to the show in Las Vegas. And what ended up happening was that there was about 20 or 30 people sitting in the audience total. There was no ESPN coverage. There was no photographers. There was really nothing. And it was an old broken down theater. I mean, I think the seats were kind of skewed sideways because the screws had fallen out of the seats. And the funny thing is that I was so excited about this contest that I was going to, I had invited all of my friends and family, and about 30 of them had followed me down to the competition. So once I started adding them into the room, I pretty much doubled the audience. So it was really hilarious because I had all these people that were supporting me, and it was just awesome having them there. But at the same time, the contest was a total letdown when it came down to promotion. So I started to see this a number of different times because at first, the promoter would just tell me, oh, well, this is just a one-time thing. Oh, ESPN, they just didn't show up, or something happened, or there'd always be a reason, right? And of course, I competed a number of other times with this federation, and it was always the same old story, always the same sort of disappointing sort of turnout. The photographers or people that were supposed to show up, the media, they just couldn't make it, or something happened. Who knows what the excuse was, but it was always a different excuse. But the fact is that I started to realize that this promoter really didn't care about promoting the athletes. What he cared about was getting the money from the athletes to compete. And this does make sense. I mean, he's promoting a show. It's not like it's a charity organization. He's trying to basically make a living, and I get that. But at the same time, what he was doing was selling a dream and not following through with that. He wasn't actually giving what he was selling. So I stopped competing with that federation for a couple of reasons, but that was one of them. I just said, okay, this guy's obviously just a shyster, and he's basically just trying to rip people off. So I started to see this with a number of different promoters. Now the thing is, I was pretty naive because the promoter that I had experience with in my hometown was great. He was doing it all for the athletes, and he was making a very small living from doing what he was doing, but it really was about spreading, health and fitness lifestyle and helping people compete through a natural outlet, so they didn't feel the need to go into the other federations where there was no drug testing and so forth. So yeah, I started to become a little bit disenchanted with the whole competition thing, and I did compete with different federations, and some federations were more legitimate than others. And that's why I say that WNBF was actually a pretty good experience for me. I didn't have a bad experience with the WNBF. I found the WNBF was actually pretty good, but they weren't the greatest at promoting their athletes. Even though they had their own magazine and things, there was really not much opportunity. Now, by opportunity, I mean you really weren't hitting a large audience. If you won a show, there were people in the federation that knew about it, but it's not like there was any sort of TSN or ESPN coverage or any television coverage. It's not like there was a lot of exposure. And the thing is, with sponsorships and companies, if you're going to get sponsored by a company, or if competition is going to give out prize money, they need to get sponsorships. Now the only way they're going to get sponsorships is if they have an audience that those sponsors want to connect with, right? Because the sponsor is only sponsoring because they want to hit customers. They want to get customers for their products. So they're not going to give $10,000 or $20,000 to a contest or a federation if they're only going to get 10% of that money back, right? So the thing is that there wasn't really enough exposure to get the athletes out there. So that's why I started doing competitions to get in shape, but I knew 100% that if I do a competition, that really will have no relevance in how much money I make or whether I can make a career out of this. So that's why I started to travel to the places where the photographers were. And that's why I go down to California at that time, because that's where they all were, in LA. That's where you go if you wanted to be a fitness model or get exposure. If you wanted to get in the magazines, you had to be around the people that were taking the photos for that purpose. And that's how I ended up in Muscle Media magazine. Funny enough, I was discovered at a show, at a bodybuilding show in California, but that's really a rarity. More often than not, you usually are discovered in other places. Bodybuilding shows are not necessarily the best place to get discovered when it comes down to making a career out of this whole thing. Now, I know with social media, this has changed even more so, because now you can get an audience without ever competing. You don't need to compete in order to get an audience. And this is something that promoters have to understand. If they don't promote the show so much that it becomes a stage for people, like a real stage, there's a reason why it's called a stage. It's supposed to be a stage where people can see you. But if you're not selling out that auditorium, or if you're not giving a lot of exposure to the athletes stepping on that stage, why are they going to step on the stage? Like, what's the point of winning a show if nobody knows you won it, right? That's what I always say. So that's the whole point of competition, is to have some sort of resume to stand upon, or to promote, or to present at some point. So why hasn't natural bodybuilding taken off? Well, for obvious reasons, natural bodybuilding is not the extreme, and extreme things have an entertainment quality to them, that shock value. And usually when something has shock value, it really is entertaining. I mean, if you guys see a guy walking down the street at 300 pounds at 5'8", it's probably more entertaining just from a shock value side of things. And it naturally gets people talking about, maybe how ugly it is, or how amazing, or how crazy it is, whatever it might be. But that has more entertainment appeal. So for me, if natural bodybuilding was going to take off, I think it might not take off in the stage side of things as much as creating a story around the entire stage sort of thing, kind of like a reality TV show or something. But I think that they need to repackage or rebrand it, because if you try to compete against the non-natural shows on the same platform, all natural bodybuilders end up looking like is just smaller versions. So this is why I think rebranding is in order. I think they need to change what the sport of natural bodybuilding really is, and they need to really look at what do people like to watch, what is entertaining, and what is entertaining is what will draw an audience. And when you draw an audience, you will draw sponsors. And when you draw sponsors, now there is opportunity for the athletes competing in that medium. Now, I'm sure there's a number of reasons, just like I just talked about, why natural bodybuilding has not taken off as a sport, because there's not a lot of spectators and things and not a lot of people that are really interested in just watching it. But one thing I do know that has not affected the sport positively is that there are a lot of greedy promoters or greedy federations out there that just think about making money off of the competitors instead of making money off of the opportunity offered to the competitors. And what I mean by this is that they just want to get their entrance fees and their membership fees from the athletes, and whether it's photography and tanning, and they're just selling all these different things, but they're not necessarily looking at how they can benefit the athlete to making some sort of career or living after that show, or basically benefiting from the audience that they build, because this show is such a big thing. Now the athlete can walk away with this massive following or audience that then they can make a career with. So I think the short-sightedness of some of these promoters has caused their own demise in some way, because if an athlete can't make a career out of something, and something is a hobby and it's taken up all their time and all their effort, they may engage in the hobby for a period of time, but at some point they have to get a job. They have to go and move on to new territory or do something else with their time if they cannot sustain it or make it sustainable in some way. Now, the good news is, never has it been easier for people to monetize their own lives, as far as they can be on Instagram, or they can be having a massive Twitter following, or maybe they just have a website, or maybe they're doing the YouTube thing, whatever it is they might be doing. There is an easier time that competitors have now in order to support themselves by following their hobbies. So at this point, a promoter can be just nothing more than a facilitator for a person to compete against other people, but it's not necessarily about exposure as much, because a lot of people have their own audience that they're trying to entertain as they go about their competitions. They're not really looking to compete in order to attract more of an audience. In some cases, they're just looking to compete just to have the experience. So in that way, natural bodybuilding could grow if more people started to understand how bodybuilding works, how to grow muscle, and the fact that building muscle naturally and getting lean naturally is possible. People have been doing it since the beginning of time, and building muscle is something that you can do naturally, and they don't have to believe in this mass negativity that's going on the internet, where anybody that loses body fat or something must be cheating. Another way I think natural bodybuilding could grow is if somebody with a bigger vision comes around, somebody like a Joe Weider, a Ben Weider, willing to invest in the athletes themselves and promote them. And by doing so, they're not only offering the athlete a career, but they're also promoting the very venue that the athlete is competing in. So if I was a promoter and I was promoting natural bodybuilding shows, and I started handing out prize money right away to people that competed in the shows, and you did all the testing and all this kind of stuff, but you thought about benefiting the athlete, I really do feel that there would be such a widespread word of mouth for this, that there'd be so many people that want to compete, they'd be climbing over each other just to get to your show. And I do think that this would build over time, because you're giving a direct benefit to the athlete that's competing with you. Now, if you need proof that this would work, all you have to do is look at Muscle Media and EAS in the 1990s. They were giving out Corvettes, and at first it started off as a Lamborghini prize for a physique transformation challenge, and then they split it up into so many different Corvettes and a certain amount of prize money for each person that entered their transformation challenge. But if you treated a natural bodybuilding and fitness show like this, and you were willing to invest money, like any business, but invest money, I firmly believe that you would actually create a wildfire of enthusiasm around the sport of natural bodybuilding with all the hobbyists in the gym, because they would say, hey, this could be a legitimate way that I could pursue some sort of career, and because of this, you'd have a bigger audience, it would be more exciting, and it would be more fun to watch, because now there's something more on the line. People like to watch high stakes type of competition. So that's my thought on it. I don't know if anybody will ever come around and take that risk. Who knows, maybe I'll be the guy that does it. If this YouTube channel ever gets going, you never know. Maybe I'd be the guy. Who knows? But yeah, I hope this helps you understand why natural bodybuilding might not be as popular. It's just my opinion on it anyway. I'm sure you guys have some opinions you can put down in the comments down below. And thanks a lot for watching, and make sure you share my stuff. That's right. Share the stuff. Share it. I know you can do it. I know you can do it. Thanks for watching.